Joining us now is Ambassador Atul Keshap. Ambassador Saab, Namaste. Welcome to Bharat.
Thank you.
Let's start with your post as soon as you touch down about Ram, the Pran Pratishtha, and how much Ramayana and Ram has influenced you in your life. So let's start from there.
Well, first of all, Anand, it's great to see you. I enjoyed seeing you in San Francisco when we helped both of our great governments launch the Innovation Handshake. It's a delight to talk to you again, and greetings to all of your viewers as well. Look, I am a proud Hindu. My parents infused in me the spirituality and wisdom of the ancients, and I do my best to try to adhere to that path every day. And of course, Lord Rama is an utterly influential figure in the way I try to live my life. And this is because of my mother and father imparting the Ramayana and the wisdom of the Ramayana to me. So I felt it was important as a human being, as a person, to mark that this was my first visit to India in what I call a great new era, an era that has been a long time coming and is very important to me personally because this is the land of Rama, and it is a great and sacred land. And it is a diverse land with people from all over and from every religion and every practice. And they are all made better by the sacred land of India. So I felt that emotion when I landed, and I wanted to telegraph it.
So your Janmabhoomi or your roots are with Bharat, and you're very proud and very happy. But your Karmbhoomi, where you've actually done a lot, there the media has been quite critical. The Western media has been quite, critical of this entire event, the Pran Pratishtha moment. That a lot of Bharatiya, a lot of people, Ram Bhaks, if I may say, have been waiting for many, many centuries, not even years. How would you see that?
Well, look, I think I'll go back to what I said earlier, that India is a great and diverse land. It has been a place of refuge for people from all over and with every religious belief. Jews have been accepted and welcomed in India for hundreds of years. Parsis came here fleeing persecution. And this is a country that is vast, it is great, it is tolerant, it is diverse, and it accepts all kinds. In many ways, it is one of the freest countries on earth. I tell you, you try walking without clothes down a U.S. street and see how people manage you compared to in India. So I've always felt, even when I was a young child, that India had many more individual freedoms than a lot of other countries on earth. What I would say is also that the Indian system, the government, the adherents of the various religions, the various social forces, all worked together through the Indian system to come to this current outcome. You, of course, are aware that there was a court case, there was legal review. And so that is another great genius of India, is that it is a nation bound by rule of law. It is a nation where every citizen gets to speak. You have this right in India. Anybody can bring a petition to the Supreme Court of India. It is an incredible thing. Not many countries have that great freedom. And so your nation, your state, your system has worked through this to a point where people who are bhakts, as you said, of Lord Ram, can feel a very great deal of spiritual fulfillment. So this proves India's stability, its tolerance, and of course, it's the fact that it's a democracy with rule of law.
Now let's talk business, because that's where you've been trying to do a lot of build a lot of synergies between the Bharat-US ties or the Indo-US equations. One of the important aspects was this entire critical and emerging technology, or the ICT initiative. There were some significant milestones that were, crossed or traversed or touched upon in 2023. So let me ask you, what is this? How is this initiative going to impact the strategic security and technology cooperation between India and US?
So let's go back to 2023 when these initiatives were launched, including the Initiative on Critical and Emerging Technology, ICET, as you mentioned, and also INDUSX, and also the Innovation Handshake. We at the Chamber were very honored to be asked by both governments to launch all three of these. And it's a reflection of our support for the United States and for India and for relations between the two countries. USIBC was founded in 1975 for that goal. And for almost 5 decades, we have worked very hard, along with our member companies, to pursue and advance that goal. So we were talking after the pandemic to both governments about how the United States and India, being the two great democracies of this planet, and the two great pillars of stability and growth on this planet must work together and learn the lessons of the pandemic, that we reside and occupy a space within a high trust ecosystem. And if we truly trust each other, as the pandemic had proven to us, then we must intensify that cooperation. Let's now look to 2024. This is going to be possibly, I fear, one of the most geostrategically turbulent years of my life. Countries like the United States and India that are stable, that uphold order, that uphold and obey rule of law, that are transparent, that are democratic, that have free people, need to intensify their efforts in the face of what is now a very clear Russian, Chinese, North Korean, and Iranian effort to destabilize the entire world and to replace our accepted order with something far more dangerous that would impoverish us all, as is happening in Ukraine with the terrible suffering there. So whether we agree with that frame or not, one thing that's essential is that the US and India have to work together, and we have to intensify our ISET cooperation. We are doing so. If you look at the work of the companies working with the two governments on semiconductors, where we have, of course, US IBC companies investing in India, like the Micron plant for packaging, assembly, and testing in Gujarat, that's a multi-billion-dollar investment. If you look at the drone and defense deals for engines for General Atomics and General Electric, we are moving forward across the companies to ensure that the deep tech and future tech of the 21st century is essentially integrated with democratic and free values. So there's intense activity going on now that we are getting into implementation.
So the friendship is growing stronger. The state visit by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, US President Joe Biden comes in for the G20 summit. That was a resounding success. How strong are the ties between Bharat and US right now?
Anand, I just spent 3 days at a conference, the Ananta Aspen Forum on India-US relations. It is organized by my very dear friend Indrani Bagchi, working in partnership with the Ministry of External Affairs. We were privileged to have a discussion with the External Affairs Minister. And while it was operated under Chatham House rules, and I therefore cannot attribute anything to any speaker, I will tell you what I told the room, and hopefully Indrani will forgive me. I told the room that when I look back on my career, the very first meeting that I organized between the United States and India was in the year 2000. And it was what we call foreign office consultations. They were characterized by acrimony, rancor, disagreement, objections, and bad atmospherics. And I thought I had failed, and I went to my boss and I said, "Gee, boss, I'm really sorry. That went very poorly." He said, "It's just how it is with the Indians. Don't worry about it." And now I said to the room, I said, 24 years later, after this 3-day conference where we have talked about our intensifying strategic, economic, and bilateral convergence, it is clear that the US and India relationship is absolutely transformed. We do 1,000 things together, and we trust one another. We have convergence on virtually everything, and we all deserve credit, all millions of us in both countries, for bringing us that far.
But there are some bumps, and how much has those bumps affected equations, Ambassador Saab? Security issues, US's cognition of threat to their soil vis-a-vis their cognition of threat to another nation. So the definition of who's a terrorist and how that terrorist should be dealt with.
I will say that there was a time in our bilateral relationship where we were dating. And so very romantic feelings came up, where when the other side didn't agree with us completely, we got hurt and said, "Why don't you agree with us? Why don't you see things eye to eye? If we're geniuses, then you must agree with us." And that was a feeling felt in both directions. And we spent many years getting through that romantic phase. I would say, Anand, that now we are married. We are married in the Indo-Pacific with the Quad. We are married in the Middle East with the IMEC and the I2U2. We are married technologically, economically, politically, and we have a very mature relationship. And in a mature relationship, as with, in this analogy, two married partners, sometimes there are things that we just don't agree on. One likes to go biking, the other likes to sit in a hammock and sip tea. It's okay. We're diverse countries. We are robust democracies. We cannot agree on everything. We're 1.8 billion free and argumentative people. And in a situation like that, problems will come up. Now, going back to the analogy of marriage, married people who have a good, healthy relationship don't throw ashtrays at each other. They sit down and say, okay, you have a perspective, I have a perspective. Let's talk it through. Let's find a mutual accommodation because our marriage is important. We are raising children. We're paying off the mortgage. We have a bright future together as we grow old in glory. So let's work through this problem as friends. And I think we are doing that. I applaud both governments for their maturity, for their sobriety, for their spirit of partnership in dealing with problems that come up. There are things that, these are normal things in a relationship. And I think it reflects a very great degree of achievement by both governments.
You get the sense that the Indo-Russian ties are perhaps somewhere more settled and more robust and a stronger marriage compared to the Indo-US ties, using the marriage analogy itself. Why do you see the difference? And is that a little bit of a bump also? Because America's position vis-a-vis Russia is very different compared to what Bharat's position is vis-a-vis Russia and vis-a-vis America.
So in this, I think in every marriage, even as there is romance, there is also some measure of dispassionate assessment. And while I won't necessarily agree with the framing of your question, what I would say is that in order for a marriage to be sustained, it has to be a partnership of equals. There has to be accommodation. There has to be mutual respect. Russia has steered itself into a giant mess of its own making. It has been ground to bits in the war in Ukraine. It has lost hundreds of thousands of its fighting age men and women. Its economy has suffered terribly. It has alienated itself from many, many countries around the world. Its supply chains are falling apart. Its technology is frankly not that great, and it's been proven on the battlefield that it's not great. That the Ukrainians have shown themselves to be far more adaptive in applying 21st century technologies to absolutely smash what is essentially a World War II fighting machine. And so the Russians have to introspect and learn some deep lessons. I think India actually is getting to be such a potent technological platform in world affairs. Its companies are so sophisticated. Your defense companies are so sophisticated that increasingly they're probably looking at Russia and saying, I don't think we're getting what we used to get out of this. So these are sovereign decisions for India to make. What I would say is India has always been a pillar of global order. It has always helped uphold the world, whether in its neighborhood, in the Indian Ocean, and now increasingly globally. The US recognizes that. American people recognize that. India will do what it will do. It is a sovereign nation. But notice that India is intercepting the terrible problems that with the rockets being launched by the Houthis, and it's helping shipping in the Bab el Mandab. And it's not just because of India, it's because that is an essential shipping lane. It must be protected. So India is contributing as usual, as it has done for over 100 years, to global order. And Russia and China and Iran and North Korea are doing their best to erode global order. So we are the firefighters. We are the pillars of stability and prosperity and freedom. Our companies are working every day to facilitate the work of our governments. And we have to keep it up. And India will make its own sovereign decisions.
My time with you is limited. The final 120 seconds, I'm counting down. So let me quickly ask you, how has Bharat changed? There are elections in both nations, America and Bharat. Are they going to change? Are the results going to change which way this relationship goes?
So I've been privileged to work in service of this relationship for almost a quarter century. And I have worked loyally with Republicans and Democrats. And of course, I've worked with governments in India of different stripes and varieties. And at the end of the day, this is a project that transcends politics. It transcends political parties. It transcends individuals and personalities. It is almost a spiritual task of bringing the world's two greatest democracies to the full potential of their relations. I always advocate for $500 billion in trade between our countries. What I'm really advocating for is that our relationship be the single greatest bilateral relationship on earth, strong in every way, with the amount of muscle and capability to deter any of our enemies, and we have plenty of shared enemies, and to uphold humanity and the freedom of the human being, and to ensure the happiness and prosperity of the entire planet. So this goes beyond elections. We will have elections. Your great voters, almost a billion voters, will have what is arguably the most complicated logistical enterprise on the face of the earth, the greatest Kumbh Mela of democracy that you can possibly imagine. And we will also have an election in this year. And when we get through it, as we have done so many times, our elected elites will take our countries forward in greater strategic and economic and technological convergence. So I'm very optimistic about our nations.
So, as a Ram Bhakt and a student of Ramayana who's learned from it, do you believe in the possibility of a Ram Rajya? Or do you, and it can be anywhere, not just in Bharat?
Sir, I'm of the opinion that the greatest Ram Raja is the governance of your own heart and your own spirit. And if each of us can emulate the qualities of devotion and duty, of rectitude, of service, compassion, and loyalty that are taught in the Ramayana, then we will all live in a Ram Raja.
Very well said, Ambassador Keshap. Such a lovely interview and so great chatting with you as always. Thank you so much.
It's my honor.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
so
Anand. Good to see you.
Namaste.